Hi everyone, we have today Jean-Baptiste Borde in San Francisco.
Bonjour à toutes et tous.
We're happy to have Louis Noël Viviès on board of Energy Observer.
Hello to everybody. We just arrived in San Francisco and we are so happy to be here tonight.
Great, thank you. And we have Daniela Fernandez from the Sustainable Ocean Alliance.
Hi everyone, happy to be here with you all.
Great, I think everyone is here and we're going to wait for a couple of minutes for everyone to join us. And we're going to share a short video to present Energy Observer projects. Let's do it.
Energy Observer is the first hydrogen vessel autonomous in energy that doesn't emit greenhouse gases or fine particles. This electrically propelled boat of the future works thanks to a mix of renewable energies and a system of hydrogen production by seawater electrolysis, fully decarbonised, decentralised and digitalised. First French ambassador for the Sustainable Development Goals, Energy Observer has undertaken an incredible odyssey for the future. To meet the pioneers reinventing economy, mobility, agriculture and housing, building a more supportive world and finding solutions to protect biodiversity. More than a boat, Energy Observer is a true media for the planet, a documentary series, 100% positive digital media, Energy Observer solutions which will promote the 17 Sustainable Development Goals to the general public. With Energy Observer, we are proud to contribute to the energy transition. We are proud of making the maritime community one of the pioneers for a cleaner world.
Great. So again, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for this Café des Sciences. We are live from the boat Energy Observer for this vessel who is now arriving in San Francisco. So I'm Jean-Baptiste Borde. I'm the attaché for Science and Technology in San Francisco. And I'm here with Maëlys Renaud, who is Deputy Attaché for Science and Technology in Los Angeles. We will both be animating this talk. We both are from the Office for Science and Technology of the Embassy of France in the US. And one of our main goals is to foster collaboration between France and the US by connecting people involved in science and technology. And this is exactly what we are here tonight all together.
Thank you, Jean-Baptiste. And thank you to Héloïse Pajot, Deputy Attaché at the Consulate of San Francisco, for helping us to plan this event. I would like to add a few words about Café des Sciences. It is a monthly scientific conference organized by the Office for Science and Technology of the Embassy of France in the US. Every month you can join us and we can discuss science and tech news with French scientists and experts. The Café des Sciences is an interactive event, so feel free to ask questions to our guest speakers by using the Q&A feature. Also, I would like to thank everyone that joined us today from the Alliance Française and from the Accueil. Thank you for your partnership. The USA Alliance Française chapters organize national cultural events, now on Zoom, that feature world-renowned authors and experts in French and in English. And they offer high-quality French classes for adults and children. And the other organization, the Accueil, refers to an international federation of French and French-speaking expatriates. It's an international network that informs and helps locally French and French-speaking people to succeed in their expatriation, to discover the city, thanks to a diversity of activities. So now let me introduce to you our first guest speaker, Louis Noël, General Manager at Energy Observer. Hello.
Hello, everybody. I am just on board the Energy Observer, and we just crossed the Golden Gate about 30 minutes ago. We are sailing around the San Francisco Bay, and I'm very happy to be with you tonight on board this boat. It is the second stopover that we organized in California before heading to Hawaii and then to Tokyo during the Olympic Games. So I will talk to you about the boat after, but the idea is to have a kind of a smart grid on board the boat with the full chain of the hydrogen system from seawater electrolysis to the fuel cell. And yeah, we are very happy to be in San Francisco, because for us it's the US and California especially are making a lot of investments and efforts. First they joined back the Accord of Paris and then they are announcing huge investments in green energies and especially in focusing on hydrogen. So we are very happy to be there.
Thank you, and we're lucky to have Daniela Fernandez with us. She's the founder and CEO at the Sustainable Ocean Alliance. Bonjour, Daniela. Can you tell us more about your organization?
Absolutely. I'm so thrilled to be here. And, it's so exciting to see what Louis Noel is up to, because some would say it's a future, but the reality, it's the present. And it's exactly what we need at this time. So, thank you for the work that you're doing. I'm the founder of Sustainable Ocean Alliance, and Sustainable Ocean Alliance is a global nonprofit that has the world's largest network of young people that are working on developing and creating ocean solutions, in addition to also having an accelerator program in which we invest and support ocean technology companies. And I'll be happy to share some examples of those solutions and those initiatives that are taking place worldwide.
Amazing. Do you want to tell us how did this project started?
Sure. So I was 19 years old and a freshman at Georgetown University when I first realized that in the ocean space, the narrative was all about the problems. It was all about the detrimental statistics of how our ocean is dying, how our climate is changing. But no one in these high-level convenings, such as the UN, had real solutions. No one was talking about entrepreneurship. No one was talking about innovation or the future. So I felt, as a young person, really hopeless. And I felt as if the people that were making these decisions were not including young people in these conversations, nor were they sparing the possibility of change and opportunity. And so that's what inspired me to then, after graduating from college, to move to San Francisco, to move to Silicon Valley, and to build this network of young people. We have them in 165 countries now that are, as passionate as I am about protecting our ocean. And we empower them with resources, mentorship, financing, to see their projects come to life. So that was my starting story of why I started SOA.
Thank you, Daniela. So before getting into our discussion, we're going to visit Energy Observer. I was very lucky enough to be able to visit the boat, and I really want everyone to be able to discover it as well. So Katia Nicolet, she's a marine biologist and chief scientist on board. She's going to show us the way, and we're going to share with you a guided visit.
So by now you're probably wondering, how does it work? So we basically have two modes. One is when we're navigating, like right now. So we're sailing and we're using the power of the sun to charge up the batteries thanks to our solar panels. So this energy is stored in batteries, 400-volt batteries that we have on board. And the wings, the ocean wings that we have as well, help us save energy. So they're not creating energy per se, but they help us move forward and thus save energy. When all those batteries are full, it's usually the end of the day and nighttime comes around. So sometimes we have to keep on using our engines to continue sailing throughout the night, but we don't have solar power anymore. So if the batteries are quite full, we had a beautiful sunny day, this energy is able to get us through the night. Sometimes we had a pretty rainy day and we don't have enough charge up in our batteries, so we have to use our hydrogen cells. So this is when we use our famous hydrogen. We take the fuel cell, turn it on, and this fuel cell will charge up our batteries during the night and help us get through the navigation even without sun. The second configuration is when we're at port or at anchor. By this stage, we're not using electrical engines, so we're not consuming much. and the batteries, they can fill up quite quickly if we have a little bit of sun. So once the batteries are full, we're not going to waste all this energy. We're going to use it to create hydrogen by means of electrolysis. So we take the water molecule of the seawater, we break it apart, we release the oxygen, and we keep the hydrogen that we store in big tanks at 350 bars. The biggest advantage of hydrogen is its weight. It's really, really light. So we have two types of storages on board. We have a short-term storage of 400-volt batteries and a long-term storage, the hydrogen. So the batteries, they weigh 1.2 tons to store about 100 kilowatt hour. In comparison, the hydrogen that we have on board only weighs 62 kilos and allow us to have 2 megawatt hour of energy. So now for a little tour of our vessel of the future. Whoop, follow me. This is the cockpit. That's actually where we pilot the ship. At the moment we have Julien, our engineer, at the wheel. Hi. So what you have to know about Energy Observer is that it's fully automatized, so there's not much that we're doing. We don't have to pull any ropes or anything. Everything is already done for us, but we still need the brain behind the computers to make sure that everything goes well. So at the moment we're 5 on the ship, which means that we each do 4 hours of watch in a 24-hour cycle. So usually it's 2 hours during the day and 2 hours at night. Now you can follow me inside to see where we actually live it. So this is the mast. This is where we work and play. We have a little area here where we can work on our computers and also at night watch TV if we want or play some games. And on this side you have the kitchen, and it was actually developed to be very lightweight. It only weighs 60 kilos in total, which is incredible because it has an oven and a washing machine and everything else. So it's not because we're running on renewable energies that we have to sacrifice any comfort. We also have 7 cabins on board for a total of 12 people capacity of the ship. And now what you all want to see is our little computer over here. So this is the main system where we can check all the production and the consumption of energy. So here you have a representation of the ship, and all those cells here represent the solar panels. The lighter they are, the more energy they're producing. So here is the total of this energy consumption in real time, and here you have how much we produced during the day. So this is the total for today. We produced so far 87.5 kilowatt hour, and here you have how much energy we saved thanks to our ocean winds. So it's not so much a production of energy here, it's more the energy we saved, otherwise we would have to put more power in our engines. And we also have at the bottom how much we consume today. So how much we consumed on the electrical engines, but also to just daily life things like computer charging and all the energy that we have to use to save all those navigation systems. So now I can show you outside how we create all this energy. So come and follow me. So on this ship we have 202 square meters of solar panels, and they are divided in 4 different types. The first type over here is a bifacial type of solar panel. So it can take up the energy from the sun from above, but as you can see it's also transparent, so it lets pass some of the light and it can absorb the reflection from the water to also create energy from below. And that allows it to be 25% more efficient than normal solar panels. They're also not completely glued to the ship itself, so they're naturally ventilated. The second type that we can see over here is a quite comfortable and smooth solar panel. And this one is really important because it's really, really light. It's only 2.9 kilograms per square meters. And it's those very types of cells that were used on Solar Impulse, this beautiful and famous plane that flew around the world only using solar panels. So we'll now go above deck to show you the other types of solar panels that we have. So the main type of solar panel that we have is the anti-skid solar panels. So those are the one right here. As you can see, they're covered with an anti-skid technology. They're quite robust, very resistant, so we can walk on them, and they cover most of the ship. And the last one, but not the least, is the Skyline solar panel. So over here, it's quite similar to the bifacial type of panel that I talked to you about a bit earlier, but this time the cells are slightly more separated to let in more of the light, which also warms the cabin underneath in cold weather climates, and it allows for more energy creation as well. And they're quite resistant, so the glass here is thicker to allow us to walk on them without breaking them. And I can even jump. So imagine those at home on a skyline or at your office. It's beautiful, it lets the light come in, and it creates energy. So right behind me we have the Ocean Wings. So those are brand new technology. We first tried a kite system, and then we moved on to a vertical axis wind turbine, but those didn't really work for us. So we created this brand new technology called the Ocean Wings. And they have the same shape as a plane wing, really. So what do? They actually reduce our consumption of energy when we're sailing. They help us to propel the ship forward. So they save the energy that we would otherwise have to consume with the electrical engines. And when there's a lot of wind, we can also use them to create energy. So how does it work? Well, when there's a lot of wind, the ship is propelled forward by those wings, and with the propellers and the reversible engines, we can create hydropower. So that's also a way of creating energy in case we have a lot of wind. So each wing is 31.5 square meters. So in total, we have 63 square meters. And those are quite efficient. So they're 1.7 times more efficient than traditional sails for the same surface. And, which is really interesting, is that if we were to use traditional sails, we would create a lot of shadow, which would hinder our solar production. So those cells are actually really, really important for us. Those Ocean Wings are very efficient and they don't create too much shade. So both solar and wind energy help us navigate and create our own hydrogen, and I'll show you just how we do that. Follow me. So here we have our hydrogen tanks. So to create hydrogen, we have to do it in 4 stages. The first one is that we pump seawater, so salt water from the ocean, and then we're gonna desalinize it, take all the minerals out of the water to make it as pure as possible, so we can do what we call the electrolyze, which is basically breaking the H2O molecule in two. We keep the hydrogen that we store in those big tanks, and we release the oxygen in the atmosphere. So here we have 4 tanks, and we have the same number of hydrogen tanks on the other side of the ship as well. And just underneath me here, we have the fuel cell, which is what we're going to use to convert the hydrogen into electrical power. We have 2 megawatt hour of energy stored in hydrogen. It's 1 megawatt hour in electric energy and 1 megawatt hour in thermal energy. So this thermal energy, we can use it to heat up our water system and also to heat up the inside of the ship in cold conditions. Maritime and terrestrial transport are always increasing the need for performance and reliability. And today, hydrogen is really one of the only options that we have to move away from fossil fuel and keep our energy needs without damaging the environment. Well, that wraps up our VIP tour of Energy Observer. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure to have you on board with us today. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and all the other social media to know where we're going to be next in the world. Back to you.
What a visionary project. Thank you so much for sharing this guided tour with us. Thank you to Katja. I think this energy mix on a boat seems very revolutionary, and hydrogen is an essential asset in the energy and ecological transition. And France made it a priority in terms of research and investment, and it is at the heart of Energy Observer's energy mix. California is also a leading and pioneering state in the field of renewable energies. And for example, the model of industry and government collaboration established by the California Fuel Cell Partnership is certainly an inspiring model for developing the electric car and the hydrogen market in general. Other nonprofits like Energy Independence Now are also advocating for it. So before we dive into the tech and how we scale them, I would like to ask Louis-Noël and Daniela how these new political and infrastructure priorities impact your organizations.
Daniela, is to you because I am a male, so you know.
Sure, I'll go ahead and take that one. Well, I think something interesting to note, an incident that took place near Earth Day was that California hit 94.5 renewable energy for some seconds, right? But even that's something to celebrate, because many states states or countries are talking about reaching renewables by the year 2045, 2050, but the reality is that we need to have these aggressive targets be short term and not long term. So, I think that what these policies are doing are signaling investors that there is some capital to deploy into these projects, whether it is in the startup phase, whether it is the Series A or above. But we are seeing a lot more investors become curious about impact investing, become interested in learning more about these projects. So that's a plus side. We're also seeing a lot more entrepreneurs from us coming to us and saying, what can we do to help the ocean? How can we play a role in this movement? Because it really is a disruptive time for all of us in seeing how we're transitioning as an economy and as a society from this very harming and harmful mentality of profit comes first to a more regenerative, how can we live in harmony with our planet and ocean? And that is a revolution, because every single industry is going to have to change for that to happen. So I'm definitely very optimistic about the shift as we see in the financial space, and also in the entrepreneurship and startup space, that we're seeing a lot more supply of ideas. We're seeing a lot more demand for these ideas, also from corporations that are finally starting to understand that having a corporate social responsibility isn't the only thing that has to come from their marketing department, because it's not just about slapping a logo, on an event and calling themselves a green company. They now are being held accountable to look at their business model, to look at their supply chain, and to figure out how can they truly be sustainable. So all in all, I think there is, positive shifts in that direction. But of course, in my opinion, we have to act with even more urgency.
Thank you, Daniela. Do we have Louis-Noël on board? Yes. I give you the floor, Louis-Noël.
Yeah, I've got a poor connection. Sorry.
Yeah, Louis-Noël, if it works, do you have a few words to answer how those political and infrastructure priorities are impacting Energy Observer and your projects?
Yeah, it has a very direct impact, because we fight for the mixity of the renewables. You know, for us, the hydrogen is the cost of using all these renewable energies all together, because the problem with the green energies is that they have a big intermittency. You know, when you have some sun during the day but not during the night, you've got some wind some days but not every day. So for us, because we are sailors and engineers, you know, 1/3 of the team come from the merchant shipping industry, 1/3 come from the racing, you know, the offshore racers, and 1/3 are just pure engineers. So for us, you know, that's why we like the Sustainable Ocean Alliance, is because, you know, they want to accelerate solutions, and it is exactly what we have done, because we are, you know, we have been around Europe, we have been around the Mediterranean, we have seen many, you know, political declarations, wishful thinking, but nobody was actually, you know, doing things. And because we are used, you know, to build racing prototypes, we are engineers, and we want to, you know, to build up systems, to modify systems. We just decided to put, you know, things together and to build this boat. And I think in terms that in infrastructure, if we have some clean energies like hydrogen available in some ports within the next 5 years, it will change a lot of things, because our system here, we have the you know, the desal stages, and we have the electrolyzing system, and then we have the fuel cell and the storage and the compression. So it's quite complicated and quite expensive. But if there is some clean energy, clean hydrogen available in harbors, it will be much cheaper, and it will be much easier for us to convince the maritime communities, you know, to shift from fossil fuels to clean energies. You know, all this is strange, because 2 years ago everybody was seeing us as, you know, but what are you doing? You know, hydrogen is explosive. You know, the renewables just, you know, for the you know, for the some hype, you know, bourgeois communities in Paris or in big cities. But and all of a sudden, in less than 2 years, many things, projects, programs have been launched. And for us, yes, we are very optimistic now, thanks to all these policies. Much more, anyway.
Thank you, Louis-Noël. I think we already have a few questions in the Q&A chat. So if you want to, I'm sure you have many questions to ask, and we will have a Q&A section after the discussion. So don't hesitate to ask all your questions in the Q&A feature. And Jean-Baptiste, it's you.
Yeah, so I guess sustainable innovations are great, but in order to have a real impact, you need to get all these innovations at scale. I mean, so that they can have a deep market penetration. Daniela, how do the startups in the accelerator of the Sustainable Ocean Alliance can achieve this market penetration?
Thanks for that question. And, you know, I'll start by talking about our due diligence process, because we have a very stringent way in, you know, choosing the companies that we work with. And we look for three main areas. So one, that they have a profitable business model, right? So that there is profit at the end of the day. And that's the number one way to achieve scalability, is for this to actually make money down the line, for investors to be excited about, you know, deploying capital into it. Number two, we look into their impact. So what positive impact on the ocean health will you have? And I'm sure people have heard about this, but it's such a challenging issue right now in the industry, because, for example, we have, you know, one of our companies that is, you know, that has built a marketplace of ocean trash, and they're pairing them with, you know, ocean collectors and people that are using ocean trash to make new materials. The question is, how do they measure their impact, right? Is it from the amount of plastic that was removed from the ocean, or is it like the new products that are creating that are supplementing plastic? So like looking through impact is a very interesting lens that no one in the industry has figured out the exact way to measure impact. but at least giving these entrepreneurs an opportunity to think about it and to figure out the way to measure it is really important to us. And we do support them in that process. And then number three is scalability, in the sense that they have to go outside their own region to deploy this technology, right? It shouldn't just be region centric. It has to really be a potential, global solution. So that's the lens through which we look at scalability at SOA. And we also realize that to scale, you need to receive funding, and you need to receive investment, and you need to be able to go through the funding cycle, right? We have a lot of companies that raise their seed round. They have friends or families, they have a grant, they win a competition, they come to SOA, we give them access to additional funding. But then there's this valley of death, as we call it in Silicon Valley, between after having raised a seed round to going to their Series A, there's no capital there. And we're slowly seeing more investors, turn into the ocean technology space and become interested and become educated. But unless we can fill that gap of having an entrepreneur raise from $250,000 to the million or the 3 million they need to then go deploy their R&D to pilot their project, those are not going to scale. So that's the way that we are seeing the the ecosystem and the way we're supporting our entrepreneurs.
Okay, that's very interesting. And from your side, Louis-Noël, could you explain us how you went from the idea to the implementation of your venture? And then I would like also to have you explain us what is the next step, is how to go to scale. And this can answer as well one of the first question that we had is how can we go from this technology to scale, which means to make this technology feasible for larger transportation ships?
Well, at first, this project was just an idea, to showcase that it's possible to be fully autonomous with the help of the hydrogen. But quite soon, our sponsors, partners, Accor, NG, Telem Group, Delancey, Toyota, after 2 years, they said, okay, it's fine. You have developed a very nice prototype. It's very sexy, it's good looking, everybody loves you, all the politicians love to have pictures of them on the boat everywhere in the world. But why don't you go a little bit further? And so we just raised about 20 million euros last year, and most of this investment some engineers and some hydrogen specialists and solar energy nerds. Somehow, it doesn't worth the investment. So you need to scale up. So we have decided to produce this Rex H2 and GA H2, which are the two products that we have launched with the support of Toyota. The first step was to convince Toyota in Japan that they needed to have more hydrogen and clean mobility users. If they wanted to push the hydrogen society and the clean mobility society, they needed to to spread the scope, the range of the mobility solutions. If they kept on focusing on cars, one hydrogen car just use 1 kilo of hydrogen per day. One single passenger boat here in San Francisco Bay use 300 kilos per day. So we just need to get the sailors and the buses companies and the trucks and the car industry, and they must talk and try to implement distribution and availability of the hydrogen at a reasonable price for the hydrogen to be competitive against diesel and gas. So yes, we have scaled up quite quickly, because actually we were quite impatient, and our partners and investors and sponsors were just thinking that everybody was talking, but nobody was doing things. Nobody was just investing, in these actual products. So we decided to launch this small genset, which will be used for the French Olympics, we hope, in Paris in 2024. We have sold some of them for 1 month now to some big renting companies and for some ports, harbors, just to provide electricity to the big ferries when they are docked. We have big interest from the Airbus planes because they use this big APU, this big turbine engine at the tail of the jetliner, and when the plane is docked at the airport, it's very noisy and very polluting because they use it, for the air conditioning and for the lighting of the plane. So we are developing a solution for them, and we have many applications actually. Yes, we took a big risk at the beginning because there was just no market. We have no competitors on this project, or very few ones. But the need is huge, and as soon as you can prove that the solution is affordable and reliable, even if it is a little bit more expensive, because yes, you've got a bigger investment at the beginning, but you've got nearly no maintenance with these new and clean energies. You've got the lifespan of a fuel cell is about 30,000 hours compared to a diesel engine on a ship, which is roughly 5,000 hours before a big maintenance, and there is nearly no maintenance. So yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but at the end of the story, your total cost of ownership is much lower with a clean solution. But that's just some theories, and we needed to prove it, so we decided to go for it and to raise these 20 million last year just to build up the first prototypes. And all this is just built on the experience that we have built up on this boat. So yes, we're going quite fast, but I think that the scale up of the technology is just fundamental. So you're right, Daniela, your strategy is a good one. We approve.
Okay, let's answer a question of a viewer, a question asked by Sharon Reminder. Daniela, could you please give us a few more examples of entrepreneur SOA has helped? And I think it would be interesting, Daniela, if you could elaborate on the technologies that these entrepreneurs have developed.
Absolutely. And then also we can go back to the importance of the shipping industry. I'd love to add some comments to that too, but I'll go into examples first. Well, given that we're having, a conversation, with our French community, I'll talk about two of our French startups. I mentioned we have a global community, so we've supported entrepreneurs from all over the world. And one company from France is called Cine. And what they're doing is they're building this plug and play big data platform to include maritime data that can be supportive of all of these different technologies and mechanisms being utilized. And this is just a great example of the importance of building the infrastructure in the ocean space, which doesn't exist, right? So this company is trying to be this all-encompassing database. Another example is a company called Sea Proven, and Sea Proven, also from France. They're developing these autonomous laboratory vessels where they have sensors all over the vessels, and they can actually, collect different amount of data and produce it in real time to provide, accuracy for scientists, for government, and so forth. So, in seeing how all these pieces come together, it's important to have mechanisms to collect the data, also mechanisms to translate the data, and then to store the data to have it, utilized properly. Another interesting fact that most people may not know is that we know more about space than we know about the ocean. We've only collected ocean data and understanding in the past 20 years than we have in the history of humanity. So again, the importance of understanding and the science and the importance of the ocean cannot be overstated. Another example, now I'll talk a little bit about a company from the Netherlands. They're called Desalinator. They're actually pioneering a low-cost, ocean-safe desalination technology that is powered 100% with solar energy, right? So looking at the technology that Louis Noel has on his ship, we have these startups that have, bits and pieces of it. And the question then becomes, what if you can put them all together and build something like what you have? So that's something that we do at SOA as well, as making sure that we can provide these entrepreneurs with the platform and community they need to collaborate and work together to advance these solutions. I'll now go into different ocean sector, talking about the plastic problem. So we have a company called Cruise Foam that creates styrofoam out of shrimp shells. So as some people may know, styrofoam is a material that doesn't disintegrate or biodegrade ever. It just lives on forever. And it's something we can't get rid of and often end up in the ocean. So this company, Cruise Foam, out of California, actually, they developed a technology to take the chitin in shrimp shells and make it into styrofoam. So that's a really exciting possibility there. One more example I'll give is a company called Novaloop, and they figured out a way that they can take the unrecyclable materials and use chemicals to break down into their original composition and resell those materials so they can be reutilized in the space. So, those are just some examples from collecting data, right? We have one more company I'll talk about, which is called CalWave, and they're using wave energy to, provide more renewables into the ocean space. So, we have companies across the board, from finding alternative materials, finding ways to collect data, looking at fishing sustainably. One more company that I'll talk about from Canada is called TradeMoto. They're actually building the Yelp for seafood, so that any person can go on there and see whether their seafood is sustainable. And also vendors such as Walmart can go and see whether their seafood suppliers are sustainable. So bringing transparency into this space is so critical to make sure that we all know the information that we're consuming, the food we're eating, and where it's coming from. So that was a lot to digest, but I just want to give you a few examples of the companies we've been supporting.
Okay. For our viewers, please feel free to ask as many questions as you want in the Q&A feature at the bottom of the Zoom. Louis-Noël, could you tell us a bit more about integration? Because obviously all these technologies are not new by themselves, but I feel like what is very striking in Energy Observer is how you can integrate them or put them together to make a comprehensive vessel. Could you elaborate a bit more about this?
Yeah, that's the key. If the name of this kind of system is a smart grid, because it needs to have it needs to be smart. It's the same on the land and on the sea. The thing on the boat is that we need to have it working, because if it doesn't work, we are stuck in the middle of the ocean and we just even cannot go home. So we have the engineers on the boat day and night, and they don't have a very wide choice. If there is any issue with the compression, with a component or whatever, they need to solve it, because they don't have the choice. And they can work 24 hours a day, 7 days, because they just cannot go anywhere else. So they are stuck on the boat. But so the integration is the key. What we believe and what we have seen all around is that that the mixity of the skills and of the experience is probably the key. If we are just relying on the solar energy and batteries, for instance, the boat should be much too heavy and with very low performance, and it will be very hard to convince the maritime communities that it's a good solution. If we are just relying on sails, for instance, most of the shipping industry is not using sails, not because it's not interesting, but because it's too difficult, to be just sailing with sails in the Kiel Canal or in the British Channel, or when you try to maneuver into the San Francisco Bay just with sails to dock and so on. It's just impossible with big ships. So we have to mix sails, hydrogen, solar, hydropower, everything. And the key is to manage the whole thing for each of the users. For some, for the fishermen, it will not be the same system. It will be an hybrid of electric and maybe even some diesel when they are very heavy. But the idea is to push them toward the cleanest solution. For passenger boats, for instance, like here between Sausalito and San Francisco, because it is always the same, voyage. It's always the same route every day. It's very easy to have a full electric and a very clean solution. For some others users, like the taxis, in the Mediterranean, for the tourist, it's another profile. It's another kind of use. So yeah, the integration, mean that you can answer to any need, because all of the applications are always different, and you need to have the most flexible system to be able to use geothermal energy, solar, wind, methane, everything. Everything you have under any clean energy you have available, you must optimize its uses. And in most of the case, you always have the best mix available. We have developed software which is used mainly by policymakers, because yes, we have all the solar power available in every spot in the world. We have the wind average speed in any place in the world, and we mix all this, and we include in the software the cost of an electrolyzer, the cost of a fuel cell, the cost of most of the components, including windmills, wind turbines, solar panels, Chinese solar panels to, the top US sun power cells and so on. So the policymaker can have very quickly three options. Either he wants to be very cost effective, he wants to go to the cheapest and clean solution. Either he wants to go to the cleanest because he is, he's convinced that it is the future, and he chooses the cleanest solution. Either he has an option which is a mix of cheap energy and green energy. And in all these options, you have a curve with your investment and then your total cost of ownership of the solution over 10, 15, or 20 years. But you need to integrate, yes, the renewable energies that are available on the site, and you need to integrate, all the cost and the running cost, the capex and the opex of the system or the solution. Otherwise, it just doesn't worth it. So you need to have this economical survey approach and the environmental impact survey too, because for us, if there is no economical, balance, the project is a nonsense.
That's amazing, and I believe if we can do it on a small boat, in the hot weather and in the cold weather around the world, I think we can do it on land and in remote areas, and I think this is what you want to demonstrate as well. Yeah, and it's fully automatic, right?
Yeah, everything is automatic because we know, that most of the crew, for instance, on big ships, in the shipping industry, most of the crew come from the Filipinas, from Malaysia, Northern Europe, Ukraine, and some of, not all these sailors are sailing, so it has to be simple, it has to be affordable and reliable, and that's one of the motto of Toyota. So we are not here to promote the Toyota brand, which is one of the biggest industrial company in the world. But the thing that every product that Toyota is developing is very durable and reliable, and they don't compromise on that. And for us to address and to offer solutions to the maritime community, when they see that we have a Toyota fuel cell in the system, it's very reassuring. It's a very strong brand. And for us, the challenge was to convince Toyota to invest in a maritime project, because they're just very focused on cars and trucks. And but we succeeded. And it's not always very easy for French to convince the Japanese, because we are very enthusiastic and we talk a lot, but Japanese, they're engineers and they want things to, to be durable and reliable. So that was the first challenge. And the second challenge was to convince Energia Caterpillar, because Caterpillar is one of the leaders in the diesel world, in the diesel propulsion world for the shipping industry, and we convinced them to use their after sale network on the coastline to bring the maintenance of our clean systems. And it was a kind of a revolution for them. But because they believe that, the hydrogen and the ecology is going much faster than they thought at the beginning. They know that all the young voters arriving on the on the political market, let's say, most of them now have a very big ecological consciousness. When you see the last elections in Europe or even in other countries, the young generations, not all of them are following Greta Thunberg, but we have been around Northern Europe, and in every small village in Norway, in Denmark, even in Russia, you see, this young, on every Friday, you had a demonstration of young students, just, about 12, 13, 14 years old in the street, yelling about the climate. And so we are not used to it in France and in Spain, in Italy, because we are quite late on these topics. But so the funny thing is that as the policymakers, they are feeling this. They are feeling that the young voters arriving on the market, most of them will vote for eco-friendly or for. So the politicians now, they are just trying to make some greenwashing very fast. But on the other hand, they understand that things are changing, quite fast now, and that's a need to get into the actual decisions and actual policies for the environment. And that's exactly the same for the big industrial companies. So like Daniela was saying, it's just not some greenwashing. Now they're just seeking to, how can we help all these communities, and how can we build all of us together this hydrogen society, or clean mobility and clean energy society.
Thanks. I don't want to creep, but I just got a text with a photo of Energy Observer, and apparently you're just under the Golden Gate Bridge. So I don't want you to miss that, Louis-Noël. Welcome to San Francisco. And I'm going to popcorn to Daniela. I think you wanted to mention something into more details about the shipping industry, and then I'm going to ask you a question about how to raise awareness. I think this is the next topic we want to touch on.
Happy to. And I just wanted to bring a little bit of perspective, right, as to the enormous industry that the shipping industry is, right? So it actually accounts for 80% of the volume of global trade globally, right? And it also accounts for 3% of global greenhouse emissions, right? So when you think about the importance of that industry being disrupted, I mean, it's critical if we're going to meet our climate targets, right? And to also give some perspective, the International Maritime Organization, they set out a 2050 ambition to reduce the shipping industry's greenhouse gas emissions by at least 50% by the year 2050, right? Which, again, I will always be the person who says it's not fast enough and it's not ambitious enough. But having said that, I also believe that there is so much work that has to happen in the shipping industry to, one, convince ship owners. So this is something that they have to work on. I was very much culture shocked when I actually gave a keynote at a shipping company in Norway a few years back. And every single ship owner just looked at me like I was crazy. They were like, why are we going to spend our money doing this? Like, there's no incentive, there's no benefit to us. Of course, now the IMO has, very strict guidelines for them they have to follow, but there is a very serious cultural shift that has to happen from these older ship owners to understand the reality that they have to change their business model. That's one. On the other hand, we also have to provide them with solutions, and those don't really exist right now at the mass scale in terms of helping these incredibly complex ships, and also the cargo ships to go green. So I think there's a matter of like demand and supply. Always, that's my go-to thinking, given that I studied economics in school. But just thinking about, we need to have so much more research and development happening to decarbonize the shipping industry. But while at the same time, we have to have these shipping companies be open to the idea of changing their practices and invest their own capital in these technologies, and in supporting projects like Louis Noel, and seeing how they can adopt that same technology or same model and scale it, and and bring it to that industry. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of that context of the importance of the shipping industry, and how ship owners need to be convinced, they need to be supported, they need to be educated, and how we also need more technology to be developed for this change to happen and occur.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's a very important topic. And yeah, I think the next question was about how to bring awareness, how to raise awareness on those topics. And Louis Noel, you mentioned the youth, and Daniela, you're part of this youth movement, and you're encouraging youth entrepreneur. What are, I don't know, the best projects, initiatives, or way as an individual or as an organization to raise awareness? What do you do with SOA? What do you do with Energy Observer? What are your activities on that topic?
I can start. I think for us, like, number one is changing the mentality of young people, right? From being victims and from being angry at the situation and from just protesting to actually going out and doing something about it, to rolling up their sleeves and becoming, inventors, to becoming entrepreneurs, to becoming scientists, and changing that narrative that, at least in my generation, has been so inculcated, in the sense that government is bad, corporations are bad, they're the enemy, to then saying the problem is real. We can all agree on that, but now it's on you. It's your responsibility to take your passion, your skill set, your knowledge, to apply that to helping our planet. And so that's the main goal that SOA has, is to have that mentality shift in our generation. And then second of all, to provide these young people that now understand what their role is, the right resources, the right infrastructure, the mentorship, the funding. Just to give you an example, we rolled out a program called our microgrant program, where we give our young leaders anywhere between $1,000 to $10,000 to go and actually put their work into action. To go and plant those corals, to go and plant those mangroves, to go and build an entire recycling infrastructure in their town in Africa. You name it. We have projects all over the world with these young people that are passionate. They have an idea, they have a model, but nowhere else other than that at SOA they would receive that mentorship, that education, and that funding they need to actually see their ideas come to life. And you need to give a young person that sense of confidence and to see their ability and the belief that they need to actually see themselves as change makers. So that's the way that we're raising awareness. It's not just about education. It's not just about telling youth what they have to do. It's about giving them the tools they need to go and make it happen.
So do you have outreach programs as part of it, or?
Yes, we have our leadership program. So any young person who's interested in saving our ocean can just sign up to be a young leader and join SOA, and then they can either form a hub in their university, in their district, in their town, or they can also apply for a microgrant project, and that's how we support them.
Thanks. Yeah, that sounds amazing. Louis Noel, what is the role of Energy Observer in terms of raising awareness?
We have started with the young students, with the about 15 years old, you know, we have created some pedagogic tools, toolboxes for the teachers in France. The whole system of the boat has been baccalaureate, you know, the baccalaureate subject about 2 years ago, and it will probably be in the next years. We have some project about that. So we have some very simple and pedagogic tools for the teachers, and the idea that because Energy Observer actually is covering you know, all the chemical and most of the physics program of you know, the 2 years before the baccalaureate. So it's a good subject, you know, for the exams. And we have this big village. You know, we have this big village of about 300 square meters that we bring with us everywhere around the world, that we have developed with the ADEME. You know, the ADEME is a French agency for the environment. So we have developed all these exhibition, which is quite immersive. You know, it's very attractive, you know, for the young people and for the students. It talks about the energical transition with lots of films and documents. It talks about hydrogen. It talks about all the technologies that we work on, even the technologies we have been working on, and we dropped them because they were not, you know, enough efficient for us, but maybe interesting for land-based application, for instance. So, you know, we have this huge village that we take with us. Because of the COVID, we could not bring this village in the US because, you know, we have lots of restrictions. But we will show in Paris in 2 weeks, just, you know, in front of the Eiffel Tower. We will try to light on the Eiffel Tower with green hydrogen, and we will have this big village over there with Airbus for the next generation of hydrogen planes, with Alstom for the new, you know, hydrogen trains, with Air Liquide for NG. So we'll have hydrogen buses, cars, bicycles, gensets. So we try to showcase to the policymakers and to the public and to the schools. And we have many engineers, you know, schools, universities who visit this village. You know, we received about 300,000 visitors for the last 3 years in this village. So yeah, you know, that's you know, Energy Observer is quite rare for the French because we do, you know, we invest half of our budget on R&D and half on communication and pedagogic tools. And it's very weird for the French because, you know, in France, either you are an engineer, either you're a politician, either you are a teacher, or you are a communication company. But when you do two things at the same time, you know, what are you doing?
I feel you know, this is changing these days in France. And
I hope so. I hope so.
I just had a short question for you. Is this material for kids in French and in English, and how can we access it?
It's on the website, on the resources pages. So you go to energyobserver.org, and in the resources pages, I would just ask Nina, les fiches pédagogiques, elles sont en français seulement. Yeah, they're in French for the moment. Sorry for that, but they will be in English soon.
Very soon. Okay, amazing. Yeah, the mic is yours, Jean-Baptiste, for maybe I think one last question before we go to the Q&A section.
Yeah, you SOA and Energy Observer have in common to engage with a big network with a lot of interlocutors. There are academics, industrials, startups, policymakers, non-profits, and so on. So I would like to have your point of view about what are the benefits of collaboration with so many different people. Daniela, could you please start over?
Thanks for that question. And it's in our name. We're an alliance, and that's what we hope to be, is to bring different thought leaders in this space to contribute to this problem, because we know we're not going to solve this on our own. We know that scientists can't do it on their own, nor can policymakers. So the benefits, I believe, are around imagination, right? And are about exploration of new possibilities. I often find myself, reading in medical journals, right, and reading about, physics and astrology, because I know that these ideas need to come from every single place to solve, these very complex problems. So that's my founder belief and principles that I've adopted in building the organization. And what we're seeing is that we have mentors coming from every sector, whether it's the arts or science or medicine or a science, just like coming forth and saying, I want to give back. I want to give these young entrepreneurs, these youth leaders, my own knowledge and my wisdom to help them accelerate their journey, right? Because being an entrepreneur, it's so difficult, it's so lonely, it's challenging, and we need all the help we can get to get these companies to get into the market, to get into the waters, to get into action. And it is going to be a group effort from the policymakers to pass environmentally and entrepreneurial friendly legislation. I was just talking to all of you offline about this, and the fact that many ocean entrepreneurs face very important obstacles in getting their technology as a pilot in the water. There are governments that require up to 14 permits for their technology to even be tested in the water. So that's something that is very significant, and the time that they're wasting in filling out these permits and the money that is being wasted, that's just so ridiculous. So trying to figure out how can we get politicians that are thinking about this new generation to prioritize making this journey of entrepreneurship more efficient and more successful. That's one. Getting the the financing industry to deploy more capital into not only the climate space but the ocean space. And many folks don't make that connection. They don't make the connection that the ocean is such an integral part of protecting our environment and our climate. So that's part of the role we play as well, is to educate people on the importance the ocean plays in the larger climate conversation. And then talking about academics, right? There are so many white papers that are sitting in cabinets at old universities that are amazing insights and findings, but they're not being translated into real tangible business models because they haven't had that conversation with an entrepreneur or a business person, right? So breaking down those barriers of entry is so important for people to collaborate and have these cross-disciplinary conversations, and that's what we're all about at SOA.
Noel, could you take over on this question, as you are also interacting with a very broad network?
Yes, but I think that Daniela is right. The thing is that if we don't move at the same time, simultaneously, if we don't push the technical boundaries, showcase and prove, and then we need to move the norms and the permits and the regulations. For instance, we are private advisors for the IMO, for the French ambassador to the IMO, actually. But we have very good contact with the IMO about all the new technologies of, for instance, of hydrogen storage and gaseous storage on board ships. And on the other hand, we work with the Veritas, with the certification office, and we have CMA CGM as a technical partner for us. So I think that if we slow down on communication and on lobbying, on political lobbying on one side, we will lose a lot of influence. So as I told you, we need to keep on investing in R&D and in communication and in lobbying and in public relations and in a pedagogic tool. We need to combine all these actions in these different networks to be efficient. And that's why we have been so fast, actually. It's because as soon as we were blocked on the investment, on the funding, we just went around it by the political side. So that's why we had this official labeling of the French president and of the ministry. That's why we are the first French ambassador for the SDGs and so on, because it protects us and it allows us to stay independent, to be able to work with some Italian technologies, German, US, Japanese, and a lot of French, of course, because the strength of the French industry is the integration. You know, they are very good to take, you know, the best components everywhere and to design reliable and affordable system. But to be at the crossroads of politics, communications, and R&D, for us, it is just, you know, the only solution to go forward. That's the only one.
Okay, let's go to the Q&A part. We have a lot of questions from the viewers. Thanks for all these very interesting questions. So let's start with Lee Marvin asking, great work on demonstrating feasibility. Are you also lobbying national governments to tax the use of carbon-based fuels? This will accelerate adoption of sustainable energy. Daniela, do you want to answer this one?
Sure. So we're not a lobbying organization. We're a 501c3. So we don't participate in lobbying activity. However, we are a thought leader in this space in that we have conversations with high-level policymakers, with heads of state, and in helping them understand the challenges that our entrepreneurs are facing and helping them understand the priorities of youth globally. So we do play a role in informing and educating, you know, very important stakeholders in this space, but we don't lobby for any specific policies.
Louis-Noël, do you want to add something for that question, or I go to the next?
I was disturbed, so I didn't hear the question. Sorry.
The question was about are you lobbying for carbon? Sorry.
For the carbon taxation.
Tax the use of carbon-based fuels.
Yeah, you know, I think that we do so many things which are very different yet. So no, we are not lobbying for that. We are mostly engineers and sailors, so we want to find, you know, concrete and actual solutions. We do some lobbying, as I told you, with the IMO and for the norms and for the regulations on board ships, just to accelerate things. But we do not lobby about, you know, taxes and no, it's not our skills. You know, we are not good at that. We are just good at designing systems. That's it.
That seems part of it, though. A question for Daniela from Mike Hedman. Does SOA have a mechanism where small-scale investors could back one of your projects, something like a Kiva model?
I actually have to look at the Kiva model because I'm not sure how exactly that works. But I should say that we launched a venture arm as part of SOA because we wanted to give individual investors the opportunity to learn about the ocean space, you know, to get comfortable with the work that we're doing before they could invest directly into these companies. So we launched a fund. It's called Seabird Ventures, and you know, we are actively trying to get more investors to think about the space differently and figure out a way to get involved. The work that we do is we raise money through donations. We are a nonprofit, and that money we allocate towards our micro grant projects, which is those you know, $1,000 to $10,000 that I mentioned in the past. And we also give, you know, checks between $25,000 to $50,000 to our entrepreneurs through SOA, the nonprofit. And then we have the venture fund, which is a for-profit entity that does give returns to the investors.
Okay, thank you, Daniela. Now is a question for Louis-Noël from Chris Mulder. Inspiring project. I'm not familiar with all the technical details of your vessel, but I assume you have a balance of power generation in the form of fuel cells and energy storage in the form of batteries. Can you explain the strategy for this balance between power and energy? How has it worked in practice, and would you change anything for your next project?
Yes, all the challenge actually is to balance what you produce and what you consume. You know, for instance, we have a kind of eco mode driving the boat, which limits, for instance, to 5 kilowatts, the total consumption. And if you want to have an espresso, obviously you will slow down the boat for let's say 10 minutes, because it will be the cost of your espresso coffee, because it takes 1000 watts, to make just a cup of coffee. So it's always a matter of balance. And as Katia showed during the boat tour, during the day we try to balance what we produce and what we consume. And if we are in a lack of energy, we can use the hydrogen as a range extender, or to fill up the batteries if we don't have enough sun or whatever. But for the next boat that we are working on, the thing that we would change, that we would try to have something which is much more similar to a professional boat in terms of design and use. So probably we would try to use some liquid hydrogen, because we think that the desalinization and electrolysis of the seawater on board is a niche market, but as not a big, it's not a big interest for the shipping industry. So because we believe that there will be hydrogen available in most of the big harbors, in most of the big shipping traffic areas. So we believe that the hydrogen will be, in the next 5 years, will be available at reasonable price to be competitive, against diesel anyway. So we just focus on the consumption now and on the propulsion of bigger and bigger ships. So the idea is to have electric and fuel cell system above the megawatt, and to use liquid hydrogen, because the gaseous hydrogen as it is used today is very light. It's about 5 to 10 times lighter than the battery storage. But the thing is that it takes some room, some space, because these bottles for the moment are limited to 350 bars. So it takes a lot of room. So for the shipping and for the professional maritime communities, we strongly believe that the liquid hydrogen and maybe the ammonia, but we are not very comfortable with ammonia up to now, are the solutions. We have been talking a lot about GNL, LNG, especially with CMS CGM, because they have been the first to order and to build LNG containers carriers, even the biggest, which is a Jacques Sade, the newest one from their fleet. Yes, it makes less fine particles, less SOx, less NOx, and slightly less CO2. But the thing with GNL is that we know that there are a lot of constraints, lots of leaks, and that it's not so good for the greenhouse gases. So we don't. I mean, it's the first step to protect the oceans, but it's not a good solution for the planet globally. So yes, we keep on pushing on liquid hydrogen storage and on a high power fuel cell systems.
That's amazing. So much research. I think I have a question for you both from Loki FAO. What universities that are US based or any other universities are you working with to promote and educate? I think the question applies to Energy Observer as well as the SLA. Daniela, if you want to.
Absolutely. I was having a hard time finding the unmute button. Well, we work with a variety of universities. We work with Stanford. We work with, the USB system. We work with Babson College. We just have a variety of partnerships, whether it's on the entrepreneurship side of things and, getting students more involved in the ocean space and getting their projects, as a feeder system, or in, helping our entrepreneurs find those scientists and researchers that want to support them in their progress. So we definitely have, mentors who are part of universities. We have members of advisory boards. So we work with a variety of universities, and we believe that it is the most important partnership that we can have in terms of, giving access to our youth and our entrepreneurs to the research and the knowledge of these institutions, while at the same time giving these institutions the opportunity to learn from the innovation happening, outside of their own walls.
Louis Noël, do you work with any universities?
No, in the US, we don't work specifically with the university. We would love to, because we know that the links between the universities and the entrepreneur world are quite tight and close in the US, and they are not enough close in France. So no, we would be very happy to talk about this with Daniela and with the SOA crew because we believe that that would be very, very interesting for us. We know that some universities here are very experts on some topics about ocean, plastic pollutions and oceanography, but no, we don't have any specific link with a US university, and that's a pity.
Okay, I'm sure it will be solved very soon. One last question for Daniela, which comes from Brennan Balson. What is the most promising plastic removal startup from SOA? So let's make it possible to open up a bit the focus, which is great.
Sure. So I'll give you 3 quick examples because their strategies are very different, but they're all very promising. One of our companies is called Repurpose Technologies, and they're based out of India, and they figured out a way to solve the tragedy of the commons, right? In terms of the fact that no one really is owner of the ocean outside of each country's exclusive economic zone. So they found a way to measure the plastic pollution of a consumer, whether it is an individual or a corporation, and then they partner with organizations in India, and they pay them to go and offset that plastic footprint of a corporation. So you're talking about an ability to actually provide a market for people in India to go and get paid for the picking up of ocean from the waters, while also giving the corporation an incentive to reduce their plastic footprint. So that's one great example. They're currently doing a pilot in India. They're also working to expand in Asia, but of course, based on our mentality, they have to be scalable and they have to be able to reach other places in the world. The other company that I'll give an example of, they are called, now I'm blanking on their name, Blue Ocean Gear. And just to give context again, the Pacific Garbage Patch actually contains 46% of fishing nets is part of what is considered plastic pollution. And these fishing nets are oftentimes discarded by fishermen. They're not necessarily getting picked up afterwards. So Blue Ocean Gear found a way to attach IoT sensors and GPS devices to these fishing nets so that fishermen can then go and locate their fishing gear and bring it back, because it's also a cost to them to be buying fishing gear over and over again. So they've been able to solve the problem of the economic cost of the fishermen and also the pollution that we will be preventing from ending up in the ocean and not being removed. And the last example I will give is Ellipsis. And Ellipsis is a UK startup, and they found a way to utilize a drone to have an algorithm to create heat maps of where plastic is in the ocean and rivers, right? So this way they can identify where are the most dense areas of plastic pollution and then deploy people to go out and retrieve that plastic pollution. Whereas, it's very hard to isolate those areas. Now with this drone system, they can have the ability to do so. So again, very different strategies and techniques from all of them, but it just shows you the ingenuity and creativity, right, that we need to have to tackle this problem.
Thanks a lot, Daniela, for your answer. Before we conclude, I would like to talk a bit about the hydrogen connection, which is the first transatlantic business hub to facilitate conversations and collaborations around clean hydrogen. This is powered by Business France, the trade agency focused on fostering international growth. So you can find in the chat the link if you want to continue this conversation and these movements about hydrogen. To conclude, maybe Daniela and Louis-Noël, you could talk a little bit about your future collaboration and what are the next steps?
Louis-Noël, do you want to kick things off and then I'll add to you?
Sorry, I didn't hear you. You know, I have not a very good connection here, so can you just do it again? Sorry.
I can go ahead. Talking about our partnership and the future collaboration. So, you know, as Louis-Noël mentioned, you know, the boat will be traveling all over the world. And as I mentioned, we have young people, we have hubs, and we have youth leaders in 165 countries. So we'll make sure that our youth get a chance to visit, get a chance to collaborate with, you know, the team behind the creation of the Energy Observer. So that's really exciting. In addition, as well, we are looking to provide any data that our startups have gathered in this space and share it with Louis-Noël, and also any partnerships like the universities that we just talked about. So we're really excited to see how we can also showcase the amazing leaders that we have in the SOA network and the projects through the media aspect of what Energy Observer is doing. So we definitely have a lot of exciting partnerships ahead of us, from raising awareness to, you know, utilizing technology and science and data, and helping each other find better ways to scale.
Yes, you know, I think that it's very impressive, you know, because we are just looking for solutions, and you know, we have this web series called Solutions/Energy Observer, or Energy Observer/Solutions. I never remember. Anyway, /media. Yeah, and so we produce all these small films dedicated to the young. To a young audience about solutions, because we want to be positive and inspiring, and because we want to showcase all the pioneers, all the entrepreneurs like us in many different areas. And yeah, we are very happy to have discovered all that the SOA is doing, because we believe it's very, very, you know, close to what we do, even if we do not, you know, help financially entrepreneurs, but we are here, you know, to raise awareness and to showcase solutions. So yeah, I think that's, and yes, we are French, but we are very proud of being French, but the thing is that we need, you know, to tie all our links with you, with other, you know, organizations, non-profit organizations, because we believe that the more we will work together, the faster it will go, and the more efficient we will be. And our only objective is to push boundaries and to make things. And so I think that the SOA is probably, you know, a very strong and very effective partner for our mission. So thank you, Daniel.
Thanks a lot. I'm very, very excited about this partnership, as I think indeed SOA and Energy Observer is such a great combination. So we are very, very glad to host this Café des Sciences with you. Thanks a lot to you. Thanks, Eloise, for the organization. Thanks, Maëlys, for the animation, and thanks all our viewers for being with us tonight. Thanks a lot.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
And I think you can, as Energy Observer is arriving in San Francisco, you can say hi to them on Pier 9 in San Francisco from tomorrow until May 13th. So I hope you get to see it if you're in San Francisco. And thanks, thanks everyone. Thanks, Daniela. Thanks, Louis-Noël. Have a great evening.
You too. Thank you very much. And thanks for the French Consulate for all your organization. Thanks, Daniela, and see you soon, I hope.